I remember the last summer I spent with my neighbor Henry. He was 86, sharp as a tack most days, a retired math teacher with a dry wit and a quiet pride in doing things his way. Every morning, like clockwork, he'd be out watering the garden, wide-brimmed hat, flannel shirt, even in July. We'd talk over the fence, swap a few jokes, complain about the weather, but that summer, something changed. It was subtle. His garden didn't look as well kept. The tomatoes overgrew the cages. He didn't laugh as much. When I asked if he was feeling all right, he just waved me off, said he was just tired. We all get tired, don't we? But then he stopped coming out in the mornings. And I think, deep down, I knew before I admitted it out loud, Henry was slipping away. Not in a dramatic, tragic kind of way. No sirens, no sudden diagnosis, just a gentle fading. That's why I wanted to make this video. Because sometimes the signs that someone is in their final year, they're not the kind that scream for attention. They whisper. And if we're not listening, we might miss the chance to show up while it still matters. Today, I want to share with you not just what to watch for, but how to be present, how to hold space, and how to turn quiet warnings into moments of connection before they become memories. Welcome to Wisdom for the Elders, the channel where we embrace aging with knowledge, confidence, and a positive mindset. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and join our wonderful community of lifelong learners. Now, let me tell you something most people don't realize until it's too late. The final year of life often begins quietly, not with a bang, but with a dimming. One of the first signs? Withdrawing from life. I don't mean becoming antisocial. I mean pulling back. A weekly lunch skipped, a family call not returned, a hobby left half finished. It doesn't look like despair. It looks like disinterest, like fading a color in a photograph. When my Aunt Margaret stopped going to her Wednesday book club, we thought she was just tired of the same stories. But later she told me, I just didn't feel like keeping up with everyone anymore. It wasn't about the book. It was about the energy it took to stay present. Another sign? Changes in appetite. People stop eating the way they used to. Not always because of illness, but because food no longer brings the same joy. It becomes a task instead of a pleasure. Henry, my neighbor, used to make a full breakfast every morning. Toast, eggs, fruit, coffee. But that last summer, he started skipping it. Said it made him feel heavy. I realize now it wasn't about the food. It was about the letting go of ritual. Then there's increased sleep, and not the restorative kind. You might notice they doze off mid-conversation or sleep for long stretches during the day. It's the body conserving energy, quietly retreating. And here's one people often overlook: a change in conversation. You might hear more talk about the past, regrets, old friends, moments long gone. You'll hear less about next week and more about years ago. This isn't just nostalgia. It's a shift in focus. The mind starts sorting through life's story, organizing the chapters. It's subtle. But if you really listen, you'll hear it. I want to tell you about a day I almost missed. It was early spring, the kind where winter isn't quite done and the flowers don't trust the sunshine yet. I got a call from my daughter telling me that Henry's daughter had flown in. He was asking for me. Now, I'm not proud to say this, but my first thought was, he's probably fine. I'll go tomorrow. But something in my gut told me, no, go now. When I got there, he was sitting in his favorite chair, blanket over his knees, garden untouched behind him. His eyes were open, but there was something distant in them, like he was watching something far away that only he could see. I sat down beside him and said, "You're quiet today, Henry." He looked at me, and in a voice softer than I'd ever heard from him said, "I was just thinking how strange it is. You live a whole life. You do your best. And one day you realize you've already said your last goodbye to someone and didn't even know it." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just reached over and took his hand. We sat there for a long time, without words. And I'm telling you this not to make you sad, but to remind you, sometimes all a person needs is someone to sit with them, to be there, to not fill the silence, but to honor it. He passed 3 days later, and that moment, those few minutes of shared quiet, are worth more to me than any speech I could have given at his funeral. Let's talk now about the body and the ways it quietly begins to say goodbye, because sometimes the most important messages aren't spoken at all. They're written in posture, in movement, in the pace of a step, or the stillness of a breath. One of the first physical signs I've seen in people nearing the end of their journey is a sudden drop in energy. Not just tiredness, but exhaustion that doesn't go away with rest. A walk from the bedroom to the kitchen becomes a marathon. Climbing stairs becomes something you plan your whole day around. You might notice weight loss, even when they're eating what they usually do. It's not always about diet or illness. It can be the body beginning to slow its systems, redirecting its energy inward. Muscles shrink, skin thins. The body prepares, quietly. There's also something called terminal restlessness. That sounds scary, but it doesn't have to be. It's a kind of agitation, picking at clothes, shifting often, seeming unsettled for no clear reason. It can be a sign that the mind and body are no longer aligned the way they once were, like a radio station between frequencies, still there, but not quite tuned in. And here's something important: changes in breathing. When my sister was in hospice, I noticed her breath would sometimes pause, then return in a slow, shallow rhythm. It's called Cheney-Stokes breathing, and it's common in the final stages. If you've seen it, you know, it's haunting, but not painful. It's the body's way of finding its own rhythm, like a tide going out. These physical signs don't happen all at once. They arrive like small waves. And when we pay attention, not with fear, but with presence, we can show up in the way our loved one needs us most. You know, people don't always tell you when they're ready to go. Sometimes they don't know how. Sometimes they think it'll upset you. Sometimes they're trying to protect you. And sometimes they're protecting themselves. But if you listen, not just to the words, but to the pauses, you'll start to hear what they're not saying. Things like, "I'm tired today. I think I'll skip the trip. You don't have to stay the whole time." Those sound like small things, don't they? But they often mean, "I'm starting to let go." I remember my Uncle Ray. He was the strongest man I knew, worked with his hands till the very end. But one day he told me, "I think I've done everything I needed to." I didn't know how to respond, so I said, "Are you okay?" He smiled. "I think I'm at peace." He never used the words, "I'm dying." But looking back, he didn't have to. Here's something else that might surprise you. Many people wait to go. They wait for a son to arrive, a granddaughter to visit, a conversation to be had, a permission to be given. I've sat beside more than one person who held on through sheer will until someone said, "It's okay. You can rest now." So my advice, say what needs to be said. Even if it's hard, even if it's messy. Say, "I love you." Say, "Thank you." Say, "I'm sorry." Because the things left unsaid, they stay with us. There's something bittersweet I need to tell you. A few years ago, I planned a trip to visit my cousin Irene. She lived across the country, and we hadn't seen each other in almost a decade. We spoke on the phone sometimes, usually short calls, the kind where you both say, "We should catch up soon," and then months pass. This time, I was serious. I bought the ticket. I even packed a week in advance. 2 days before my flight, I got a call from her daughter. Irene had passed in her sleep. I never made that trip. I still have the boarding pass. I keep it in a drawer, not because I like the reminder, but because it taught me something I won't forget. Sometimes we think we have time. We think we can wait until next month, until they're feeling better, until we're less busy. But people are not places. They don't stay waiting. Irene had been showing signs, pulling back, talking more about her childhood, saying things like, "I'm so tired lately." I heard them, but I didn't hear them, not the way I should have. And if this video does anything for you, I hope it helps you hear differently. Because when a trip becomes a missed goodbye, it doesn't go away. It just becomes a part of you. But that also means today, right now, is your chance not to miss the next one. There's something we all have to learn, especially those of us who care deeply. You can't fix this. Not with medication, not with good intentions, not even with love. But you can walk alongside someone. You can sit beside them while they remember who they were. You can listen to the stories you've already heard 10 times, because sometimes those stories are the only thing keeping them here. I remember sitting with my neighbor's wife Lillian during her final month. She was quiet most days, but every now and then she'd whisper a memory, baking bread with her mother, dancing in the kitchen to a record long gone. I never tried to change the subject or cheer her up. I just listened, and I think that mattered more than anything else I could have done. Here's the truth. Presence is more powerful than fixing. We don't have to do grand things. Sometimes making someone feel seen, truly seen, is enough. You don't have to know the perfect words. You don't need to be strong all the time. You just need to show up. And that, my friend, is more than most people ever do. When we talk about the end of life, we often talk about what's lost. But I want to close by talking about what's left behind. Because legacy, true legacy, isn't always a name carved in stone or a family heirloom passed down through generations. Sometimes it's a joke that still makes someone laugh, a recipe no one else can quite get right, a sentence spoken once that someone never forgot. It's in the way we made people feel, the time we gave, the forgiveness we offered, the quiet moments of grace when we didn't even realize we were being remembered. So if someone you love is showing signs that their final year may be near, slow down. Pay attention. Ask the question. Sit a little longer. Forgive what needs forgiven. Say what needs to be said. And if you're the one growing older, know this. Your story is still being written. There is still time to love, to laugh, to leave something behind that matters. And if this video spoke to you, even just a little, I'd like to ask you to do something. Share in the comments. What legacy do you hope to leave behind? What's one lesson you've learned that others should know? I read every comment. This channel isn't just about stories. It's about connection, and yours matters too. So if you haven't yet, please like this video, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so we can continue sharing these moments together. Until next time, be well, be kind, and remember, sometimes the smallest moments are the ones we carry the longest.